Trust in prison. Does it even exist? What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. So I was asked the other day if I could do a video on trust in prison. And I'm going to be honest with you. I've been thinking about that. I've been going over it in my head. Does it really exist? And there are so many examples. Like, we can look at YouTube itself. Look at YouTube itself and all these dudes who supposedly were in prison and supposedly were with the business. And how many of them spend time talking about other people? Gunner and I, for the most part, have assisted a lot of these guys in the behind the scenes, and they turned around and bit us, bit our hands, spit in our face. And then again, a lot of these dudes were never anywhere serious, and so for them, it's funny. They're kids. They think the mentality is childlike. It's very immature, impulsive. There were people that I trusted in prison, and there were people that trusted me. And that trust was gained over time. It was earned over time. Trust in prison has to be earned. Trust, period. In day-to-day life, whether you're in prison, whether you're out here, because you're related to someone doesn't mean you trust them. They got to earn that. If they haven't exhibited the right characteristics, why would you trust them? Trust has to be earned. I told a story a long time ago about a kid who came in and his cellie was telling him that he was a legend. And this kid sucked it up. And we found out about it. And when we were going to hit him, I don't know what happened, but him and his cellie, the youngster and the other dude, got snatched up and they were in Ad Seg. And I'll say the name now because he's no longer here. The youngster went to yard one day, and that was when we were going to the yard cages at this point. And the youngster came out to yard by himself. His cellie stayed in. Imagine, he says he's a legend, but he's like, nah, I'm cool. I'm not going to go show my face on yard. That wouldn't happen. But the youngster went out there, and Wicked from Blythe Street, the one who was just had his life taken, spoke to him. And he told him, like, trust needs to be earned. Why do you trust that guy? How do you know that dude? Where do you know him from? And the gist of the conversation wound up being this. The youngster said, that's my cellie, and if anybody ever tries to do anything to him, I'm riding with them. And so Wicked was like, all right, I don't think that's very smart, but you made up your mind, and hey, you're making your bed. And the youngster was like, yeah, and Wicked was telling him, like, I don't know if anything's going to happen to him. I'm just wondering why you're so loyal to somebody that you don't know and you just met based off of something they said. But anyways, so he was kicked out of Ad Seg. We were all in Ad Seg. They were kicked out of Ad Seg to B facility. And based on him opening his mouth and voicing his pledging his loyalty to his cellie, they both got hit. But I guess that's an example of where there is trust in prison. He trusted someone he didn't know because that dude had a great story to tell, I guess. There are people that I trusted in prison that we are still friends to this day. And they're out here and we talk from time to time, not a lot. One of my cellies, we follow each other on TikTok. We follow each other on IG. We talk from time to time. That man earned my trust in the 90s and still has my trust. It's very rare in prison to develop a friendship. And the reason why is because people are going to come and go. And when you have an environment where, you know, I know all these dudes that never been around anything like to talk about people and talk about things. Like I hear people say, oh, he folded, this, that Vato folded. But they don't understand. Or they like to be arrogant because they're not in there and have never been under the certain situations. There is dirty politicking. One of your camaradas, I'll give you an example. I had a camarada of mine, and I've told this story, but this is somebody that I trusted wholeheartedly, and I had his back wholeheartedly. And he had came down from the Bay, and he had been in the Bay for over a decade, man, in the shoe over a decade, came down to New Folsom, and saw some things needed to be fixed and went about it the way they did it in the 80s when he was on the main line. And so dudes started getting whacked. Left and right dudes were getting hit. He hit somebody. He had some people hit. And one of the people hit, his mom asked for a favor. And she was granted that favor. And my camarada, he's no longer alive. He was hit. And he wasn't hit good because the homies that hit him, they did it in a way to put him up like, hey, you're done. And everybody knew it was wrong. It was wrong for that favor to be asked. And so somebody was in cuffs and hit him when he was in cuffs with a razor on the arm. Could have gotten in trouble and took a chance because he was basically giving the homie the heads up like, hey, Holmes, they put it on you, you know. And I was on the yard still, and I heard about it. And I could not help him. I couldn't even engage in that because I needed to focus on the yard that I was on and the responsibilities that I had there. Later, I wind up going to the Ad Seg, and I wound up in the row next to him. Matter of fact, I wound up in the row next to him, went back out to the yard, came right back, and then I wound up on the row with him. And that time, I knew I was going to have time in Ad Seg with him. And so I got at him. And, you know, basically he was on disregard, man. They put him on disregard. And me, I've always been for what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. So I got at him. I sent my line down there. We connected our lines. Boom. And I told him, look, I need to know exactly what happened, who's involved, and who I need to get at, because this ain't right. And he told me. No, and I asked him, and again, I'll say his name. Wicked was there. And Wicked was part of our crew. And I said, why hasn't Wicked helped you? And he said he wanted to, but his name was specifically mentioned in a Huila, and the message was, if you try to help him, you're going to walk in his shoes. And I told him, I told the homie that told me that, I said, well, what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. If I got to walk in your shoes when I know you didn't do nothing wrong and I'm not doing nothing wrong, then we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And so I helped. I tried to help. I wrote who I needed to write. I wrote several people, and I was this close to getting it fixed. However, there were other Southerners that were going back and forth from Corcoran Shoe to New Folsom. And these dudes were down. They were with the program, but they had something about them. And I'm gonna share it with you. They had something about them that is foul. They would monitor every time they came back. Hey, who got at so-and-so? The dude I was trying to help. The dude it wasn't even trying to help. It was setting the record straight. Who's getting at him? So they could go tell on the homies. Oh, this guy's getting at him. So when they came back, they were sending out feelers. Hey, who's getting at that vato? And nobody said my name, but they gave me the heads up. Hey, these vatos came. Vatos are straight rats, eh? They'll tell on you. Yeah. Those vatos that are, that go running to the legends because of somebody else, you may be called that behind your back. You think you're a cool guy, and they look at you like that's the homie. Yeah. You're telling on other homies, eh? Regardless of what you think you're doing, you're telling on other homies. But anyways, so when I was given the heads up, I wrote where I needed to write to and said, hey, I need some coverage because, these dudes are running and they're telling this dude, and this dude. And unfortunately, word came back. It's not worth the headache. It's not worth getting you caught up trying to help him when they already made up their mind. Let it go. This was someone who had been in prison since the 80s, the early 80s, who had been involved in a lot of serious stuff, done very serious things, very intelligent, a really good dude, man. And he did the right thing. He did exactly what was expected of him. But because someone's mom had someone's ear, he was no good. He trusted people, and that's what happened. So, trust does exist in prison, but it's fluid. Laws that are in place in prison are fluid. They can be applied one day and overlooked the next, depending on who you are and who you know, what you're able to provide. It's a cold reality of prison. There's nothing you can do to get around it. You can do everything right and still wind up crossed up. And that's what trips me out about these dudes that talk about other dudes. Guys that have never been there, guys that have never performed. And when we see how they conduct themselves on social media, we know they wouldn't have lasted a month. Maybe some of them a year. But see, who they are on social media would have been seen a whole lot quicker. You can't hide who you are because everywhere you go, there you are. You're right there. Every conversation is for a purpose. And you might be having a frivolous conversation with a camarada of yours, a buddy of yours on the yard. But there's other people listening. And they're assessing who you are by the conversation that you're having, by the way you're conducting yourself, by the words that you use. I don't know that I answered the question. I answered it the best I could. Trust is fluid in prison. A friend today can be a foe tomorrow. A friend today could be gone tomorrow and he hadn't done anything. That's why for a lot of us that were in prison, when we interact with people, we have the ability to cut ties, to cut them loose like that. Because we have seen thousands and thousands of people come and go in our lives while incarcerated. And you can't get too attached. A homie of yours gets washed up, you're like, that's fucked up, man. And then you go back to whatever the task is at hand. Whatever you're supposed to be focusing on is what you have to focus on. Anyways, that's my video for today, man. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them. I'm out of here.